Across the galaxy, civilizations rise and fall like waves against the shore of eternity. Some ascend through technological mastery, others through psychic evolution, and many through sheer military might. For 10,000 years, the hegemony has stood as the ultimate authority, their fleets bringing order to a chaotic universe through overwhelming force and ancient wisdom. But in a small spiral arm, on an unremarkable blue-green world called Earth, something unprecedented is about to unfold. Humanity, a species barely capable of interplanetary travel, is about to teach the galaxy that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from technology or numbers, but from the unbreakable will of those who refuse to surrender. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? The galaxy is about to find out, and the answer will echo through the stars for generations to come. This is the story of humanity's first contact with alien forces, and the day Earth proved that being small doesn't mean being weak. The universe is vast, ancient, and merciless. Today it meets its match. The first sign that humanity was not alone in the universe came not through radio signals or mysterious lights in the sky, but through the violent death of the asteroid mining station Prometheus 7. Commander Sarah Chun was reviewing quarterly extraction reports when the communication array exploded into static. One moment, she was looking at productivity charts for the outer belt operations. The next, she was staring at a screen filled with electromagnetic interference that made her teeth ache. "Martinez, what the hell is happening to our feeds?" She barked at her communications officer, Lieutenant Carlos Martinez, whose fingers were already dancing across his console with practiced urgency. "Unknown interference pattern, Commander. It's not solar activity. This is something else entirely. The signal's coming from the direction of Prometheus 7. But Martinez paused, his face paling as he processed the incoming data. "Ma'am, Prometheus 7 isn't responding to any hails. According to our sensors, the station is gone." Chun felt her blood turn to ice. Prometheus 7 housed 3,000 miners and their families. It was one of humanity's most advanced deep space installations, positioned in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The station was built to withstand almost anything the cosmos could throw at it: solar flares, asteroid impacts, even the theoretical possibility of a reactor breach. For it to simply vanish was impossible. "Define gone, Lieutenant." "There's debris, Commander, but not enough." The mass readings suggest that approximately 80% of the station has been vaporized. The remaining 20% is scattered across a debris field roughly 50 kilometers in diameter. The bridge of the Earth Defense Force Carrier Defiance fell silent, except for the constant hum of life support systems. Chen had commanded vessels for 15 years, had seen combat against pirates, and participated in the suppression of 3 separate colonial rebellions. She had never encountered anything like this. "Time to reach Prometheus 7 at maximum burn?" she asked her navigation officer. 14 hours, Commander. Make it 12. All departments, battle stations. I want every sensor array active and every weapon system online. Whatever did this might still be in the area." As alarms echoed through the corridors of the Defiance, Chin couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had just crossed a threshold from which there would be no return. She was right, though not in any way she could have imagined. 14 light-years away, in the command center of the hegemony dreadnought Eternal Judgment, Fleet Commander Keltar examined the tactical display with the calm patience that had made him legendary throughout the galaxy. The holographic representation showed the Sol system in exquisite detail. 9 planets orbiting a middle-aged yellow star, with various installations scattered throughout the inner system. "The probe's mission was successful, Commander," reported his tactical officer, a spider-like being called Velthera whose species had served the hegemony for over 2 millennia. "The mining installation was eliminated with minimal energy expenditure. Our analysis of their defensive capabilities suggests this will be a routine pacification operation." Keltar's 4 eyes studied the data streams flowing across the display. The creatures calling themselves humans had spread across 3 planets in their system: their homeworld Earth, a partially terraformed Mars, and various installations throughout their asteroid belt. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards, still relying on chemical propulsion for most of their spacecraft and nuclear fusion for power generation. They had no energy shields, no particle beam weapons, and no faster-than-light communication. What is their estimated population, Velthara? Approximately 12 billion across all installations, Commander. The majority are concentrated on the primary world. Based on the observed responses to our probe attack, they appear to have a unified command structure and show signs of military organization. Keltar's mandibles clicked in what his species used as an expression of mild amusement. 12 billion individuals, a respectable population for a species that had never encountered galactic civilization. Most worlds the hegemony encountered had populations in the hundreds of millions at most. The humans had certainly been productive in their isolation. Their military response patterns? Predictable. They are moving ships toward the site of our probe strike, following standard defensive protocols. Their largest vessel appears to be approximately 800 meters in length, armed with kinetic weapons and nuclear warheads. Primitive but functional within their technological limitations. The fleet commander studied the tactical readout for several minutes. The humans showed the typical signs of a species on the verge of significant technological advancement. They had achieved limited spaceflight, possessed nuclear weapons, and had established permanent off-world colonies. In another few centuries, they might even develop faster-than-light travel and become a minor player in galactic politics. Unfortunately for them, the hegemony had a schedule to keep. The galactic arm containing the Sol system was scheduled for integration within the next standard cycle, and the advanced fleets were already moving into position. Humanity would be given the same choice offered to every species the hegemony encountered: submit and accept their place in the galactic order, or face the consequences of resistance. Velthara, transmit our compliance offer through standard channels. Make certain they understand that resistance will result in the total sterilization of their system. At once, Commander. Back in the Sol system, the crew of the Defiance worked frantically to understand what they had discovered at the site of Prometheus 7. The debris field painted a picture that challenged everything humanity thought they knew about physics and warfare. Chief Engineer Yuki Tanaka had been analyzing metal fragments for 6 hours, and her findings grew more disturbing with each passing minute. "Commander, I need you to see this," she called from the primary laboratory, her voice tight with controlled fear. Chun found Tanaka standing before a holographic display showing the molecular structure of a piece of hull plating from Prometheus 7. The metal had been twisted into impossible shapes, as if space itself had been folded around it. "What am I looking at, Chief?" "This is a piece of reinforced titanium steel composite, the same material used in the hull of every major installation. The tensile strength should make this virtually indestructible under normal circumstances." Tanaka highlighted several sections of the display. "But look at these damage patterns. The metal wasn't melted or broken. It was reorganized at the molecular level. Whatever hit Prometheus 7 didn't just destroy it. It fundamentally altered the atomic structure of everything it touched." Chun studied the display, trying to comprehend what she was seeing. "Are you telling me that someone has technology capable of manipulating matter at the molecular level?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you. And, Commander, there's something else. We found this embedded in one of the larger debris pieces." Tanaka activated a secondary display, showing what appeared to be a small crystalline structure roughly the size of a golf ball. It pulsed with a faint blue light that seemed to shift and dance within its depths. "We think it's some kind of probe or monitoring device. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. Whatever sent this thing here wanted to study us, and when they were finished, Tanaka gestured helplessly at the debris field surrounding them. Before Chun could respond, Martinez's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. "Commander to the bridge, immediately. We're receiving a transmission from an unknown source. The signal is coming from outside the solar system. And, Commander, it's in perfect English." Chen's blood chilled as she hurried back to the bridge. An alien intelligence that could speak their language was either the best possible news or the worst possible nightmare. Based on what had happened to Prometheus 7, she strongly suspected the latter. The bridge crew stood at rigid attention as Chun took her position in the command chair. The main viewer showed a figure that would haunt humanity's nightmares for generations to come. Tall and imposing, with 4 glowing eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on an elongated head. The creature's skin appeared to be a dark chitinous material, and when it spoke, Its voice carried an authority that had been forged over millennia of conquest. Inhabitants of the system you call Sol, I am Fleet Commander Keltar of the Hegemony 4th Fleet. Your species has been selected for integration into the galactic community under Hegemony authority. You will prepare for the arrival of our administrative forces and the establishment of proper governance over your worlds. Chun found her voice despite the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the Earth Defense Force. By what authority do you make these demands? Humanity is a sovereign species, and we have the right to govern ourselves. Keltar's 4 eyes focused on her with predatory intensity. Authority, human, comes from strength. The hegemony has maintained order across this galaxy for 10,000 of your years. We have incorporated over 40,000 species into our collective, bringing peace and prosperity to worlds that might otherwise have destroyed themselves through primitive conflicts. And what if we refuse your generous offer? Chen asked, though she already suspected the answer. Then your species will be classified as hostile and dealt with accordingly. I have seen the destruction of 17 worlds, Commander Chun. I have watched the light die in 43 star systems. Do not force me to add yours to that number. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Defiance in stunned silence. Chun looked around at her crew, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. Humanity had just received an ultimatum from beings so far beyond their technological capabilities that resistance seemed impossible. But as Chin studied the determined expressions of the men and women around her, she realized that sometimes impossibility was just another word for challenge. Humanity had never been known for taking the easy path, and they weren't about to start now. Martinez, open a channel to Earth Command. Priority 1 encryption. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Tell them that first contact has been established, and we're going to need every ship, every weapon, and every brilliant mind our species can provide. Tell them that humanity is going to war. The die had been cast. In a galaxy ruled by the strong, humanity was about to prove that strength came in many forms, and the deadliest was the one that refused to surrender no matter what the odds. The hegemony had encountered countless species in their expansion across the stars, but they had never encountered anything quite like humanity. They were about to learn why. The emergency session of the United Earth Council convened 18 hours after the hegemony's ultimatum reached Earth. Representatives from every nation, colony, and major corporation gathered in the gleaming chambers beneath Geneva, their faces bearing the weight of a decision that would determine humanity's survival. Secretary General Elena Vasquez stood at the central podium, her usually immaculate appearance showing the strain of a sleepless night spent reviewing tactical reports and emergency protocols. Around her, holographic displays showed real-time feeds from across human space. Mining operations being evacuated, defense platforms being activated, and millions of people beginning to comprehend that their species was no longer alone in the universe. Ladies and gentlemen, we face an unprecedented crisis, Vasquez began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Based on the intelligence gathered by Commander Chun and the Defiance, we are dealing with a galactic civilization that possesses technology centuries beyond our own. They have given us 72 hours to surrender our autonomy or face total annihilation. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Admiral James Morrison, the grizzled commander of Earth's combined fleet, stood slowly. His weathered face bore the scars of 3 decades of military service, and his eyes held the cold calculation of a man who had seen what warfare could do to civilizations. Madam Secretary General, I've reviewed the tactical data from Prometheus 7. Whatever weapon they use to destroy that station operates on principles we don't understand. Our most advanced ships are armed with nuclear warheads and kinetic interceptors. Based on what we've observed, their technology makes our weapons look like stone knives and bearskins. Dr. Rebecca Liu, Earth's leading theoretical physicist, activated her display console. The chamber filled with complex mathematical equations and energy readings that hurt to look at directly. Admiral Morrison is correct. The energy signatures we detected suggest they're manipulating space-time itself as a weapon. The debris pattern from Prometheus 7 shows matter displacement that should be theoretically impossible. "So you're recommending surrender?" asked Director Hassan al-Rashid from the Mars Colonial Authority, his voice edged with the quiet fury that had made him legendary among the outer system colonists. "I'm stating facts," Dr. Liu replied coolly. "However, I've been running calculations since yesterday, and there may be possibilities we haven't considered." She gestured, and the display changed to show a three-dimensional map of the solar system, with energy readings and gravitational fields marked in brilliant colors. Their technology appears to be based on manipulation of fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetism, and what we're tentatively calling space-time folding. But here's the thing about advanced technology: it usually requires precise conditions to function optimally. Admiral Morrison leaned forward. "Explain." "Think about our own weapons. A nuclear warhead is incredibly destructive, but it requires specific conditions to function: proper compression, timing, environmental factors. If you disrupt any of those conditions, the weapon fails. The same principle likely applies to their technology, just on a scale we're only beginning to understand." Director al-Rashid's eyes lit up with the fierce intelligence that had transformed Mars from a barren wasteland into a thriving world. "You're talking about asymmetric warfare. We can't match their technology, but we might be able to find ways to disrupt it." "Exactly. And we have advantages they might not expect. They've been dealing with species that follow predictable patterns of technological development. Humanity has always been unconventional in our approach to problems." Secretary General Vasquez studied the faces around her. These were the leaders of species that had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and the transition to space-based civilization. They had never faced extinction from an external force, but something in their expressions suggested they weren't planning to start backing down now. "Dr. Liu, what do you need?" "Access to every research facility, every experimental laboratory, and every brilliant mind our species can provide. And I need them working around the clock for the next 72 hours. "You have them." "Admiral Morrison, what about our military preparations?" Morrison's smile was predatory. "We're going to give them something they've never encountered before, a species that treats impossible odds as a personal challenge. I'm implementing the Sparta Protocol immediately." The Sparta Protocol was humanity's ultimate contingency plan, designed for scenarios where Earth faced total annihilation. It involved the complete militarization of human space, the conversion of civilian infrastructure into military assets, and the implementation of tactics so desperate that they had never been seriously considered until now. Within hours of the council session, the transformation of human civilization began. Mining ships were retrofitted with nuclear warheads, turning them into massive kinetic projectiles. Research stations became weapons laboratories. Even civilian transports were modified to serve as decoy targets or ammunition carriers. On Mars, Director al-Rashid stood in the primary terraforming control center, watching as a lifetime of work was repurposed for war. The atmosphere processors that had slowly transformed Mars into a garden world were being modified to create something far more sinister. "Are you certain this will work?" asked Dr. Sarah Kim, the chief atmospheric engineer, as she watched her carefully calibrated systems being rewired for purposes their designers had never imagined. "It'll work," al-Rashid replied grimly. "The question is whether we'll have a planet left to live on afterward." The plan was audacious even by human standards. If the hegemony fleet approached Mars, they would find a world that appeared to be in the midst of atmospheric collapse. The terraforming systems would be running in reverse, creating massive dust storms and electromagnetic interference. Hidden beneath the chaos will be weapons platforms and defensive systems that the aliens would hopefully not detect until it was too late. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Commander Chun coordinated the most ambitious mining operation in human history. Hundreds of ships worked frantically to hollow out asteroids, filling them with nuclear warheads and basic guidance systems. The plan was simple and horrifying: turn every piece of space debris in the solar system into a potential weapon. "Commander, this is insane," protested her engineering chief as they watched automated systems gut another asteroid. "We're talking about turning our own asteroid belt into a minefield." "Insane is letting an alien species decide our fate for us," Chen replied. "Besides, we're not trying to win a conventional war. We're trying to make them reconsider whether conquering us is worth the cost." Back on Earth, Dr. Liu worked with a team of brilliant minds from every scientific discipline, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge in ways that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a graduate student studying quantum mechanics who had been wondering about the implications of the alien energy signatures. Dr. Liu, I think I understand how their weapons work, announced Marcus Chun, no relation to the commander, as he burst into the primary laboratory. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but his voice carried the excitement of discovery. Show me. Marcus activated a holographic display showing the quantum structure of space-time around the destroyed mining station. They're not actually manipulating matter directly. They're creating localized distortions in space-time that cause matter to reorganize itself. It's like, imagine space is a sheet of fabric, and they're pulling on specific threads to make the whole sheet reshape. Dr. Liu studied the display, her mind racing through the implications. If we're right, then their weapons require precise quantum calculations to function. Introduce enough chaos into the local space-time fabric, and their targeting systems should become unreliable. How do we create that kind of chaos? Liu smiled for the first time since the crisis began. We do what humans do best. We improvise. The solution was elegant in its simplicity. Humanity didn't need to understand alien technology to disrupt it. They just needed to create enough interference in local space-time to make precise calculations impossible. And it turned out that nuclear explosions, when properly timed and positioned, could create exactly the kind of quantum chaos they needed. As the 72-hour deadline approached, the Sol system bore little resemblance to the peaceful collection of worlds the hegemony had first observed. Every asteroid had been weaponized. Every planet bristled with hidden defenses. And scattered throughout the system were thousands of human beings who had volunteered for what was euphemistically called close contact operations, suicide missions designed to gather intelligence and inflict maximum damage on alien forces. Fleet Commander Keltar studied the updated tactical displays with growing concern. The humans were behaving unlike any species the hegemony had previously encountered. Instead of consolidating their forces for a traditional defense, they appeared to be scattering assets throughout their entire system. The pattern made no logical sense from a strategic standpoint. Velthara, what is your assessment of human defensive preparations? His tactical officers' multiple eyes focused on the holographic display. Their behavior is erratic, Commander. They appear to be converting civilian infrastructure into military assets, but their deployment pattern suggests no coherent strategy. Perhaps their technological limitations prevent effective coordination. Keltar was not convinced. In his millennia of service to the hegemony, he had learned to be suspicious of enemies who appeared to be acting irrationally. Usually, it meant they understood something he didn't. What is the status of our advanced fleet? 27 vessels will reach the outer edge of their system in approximately 6 hours, Commander. Should we proceed with standard pacification protocols? Keltar hesitated. Standard protocols called for the systematic destruction of military targets, followed by the elimination of population centers until surrender was achieved. It was efficient, predictable, and had worked on thousands of worlds across the galaxy. But something about the humans troubled him. Their response to his ultimatum had been neither surrender nor the desperate consolidation of forces he had expected. Instead, they had chosen to scatter and hide, turning their entire solar system into what appeared to be a chaotic maze of potential threats. Commander Veltara prompted, proceed with the advanced fleet, but maintain elevated alert status. I have a feeling these humans are going to surprise us. On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Sarah Chun watched the long-range sensors as alien ships finally appeared at the edge of the solar system. 27 vessels, each one larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. In a conventional war, they would have represented an unstoppable force. Fortunately, humanity had never been much good at conventional warfare. All stations, this is Commander Chun. Operation Prometheus is now in effect. Remember, we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to teach them that conquering us costs more than leaving us alone. Across the solar system, thousands of humans prepared to face an enemy they couldn't match, couldn't outrun, and couldn't negotiate with. But they had something the hegemony had never encountered before: a species that viewed impossible odds as merely another engineering problem to be solved. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had a saying, "The only way to stop a human is to kill them all." And even then, you'd better make sure. The war for humanity's freedom was about to begin, and the aliens had no idea what they were walking into. The Hegemony Advance fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system with a precise coordination that had made them the terror of 1,000 worlds. 27 ships arranged themselves in a perfect geometric formation, their hulls gleaming with the dark energy that powered weapons capable of sterilizing planets. Captain Zethkaler commanded the lead vessel, a destroyer-class ship called the Inexorable Will. He had participated in 43 planetary pacifications, and the routine was as familiar to him as breathing. Deploy at system edge, conduct tactical scans, eliminate military targets, demand surrender, repeat as necessary until compliance was achieved. But as his sensors began mapping the human solar system, Zethkaler experienced something he hadn't felt in decades of military service: confusion. Tactical Officer Mixandra explained these sensor readings. The insectoid tactical officer manipulated her controls with 4 arms simultaneously, her compound eyes processing data streams that would have overwhelmed most species. "Captain, the humans appear to have modified their entire system. Our intelligence indicated approximately 400 vessels of various classes. Current scans suggest over 10,000 potential targets." Zethkaler's crest flared in agitation. Elaborate. They appear to have converted virtually every piece of space debris into a weapons platform. Asteroids, derelict ships, even what appear to be chunks of processed, or all are showing energy signatures consistent with nuclear weapons. The captain studied the tactical display, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. The asteroid belt between the 4th and 5th planets glowed with thousands of red markers, each one representing a potential threat. The orbital space around the inner planets was similarly dense with indicators. "This makes no strategic sense," he muttered. "Dispersed weapons platforms are ineffective against capital ships. A single particle beam can eliminate dozens of these primitive devices. Shall I begin standard target elimination protocols, Captain?" Zethkaler considered the question. The humans had turned their system into what appeared to be a desperate attempt at area denial. It would take time to clear all the converted asteroids, but his weapons were more than capable of the task. Still, something nagged at him, a feeling that he was missing something important. Begin elimination of military targets. Standard approach vector toward the primary world. What Captain Zethkaler didn't know was that he had just walked into the most sophisticated trap in human history. 12 hours earlier, Dr. Rebecca Liu had made her final calculations in a laboratory buried 3 kilometers beneath the Swiss Alps. Around her, the most brilliant minds of humanity worked frantically to refine a theory that would either save their species or get them all killed. The quantum interference pattern should propagate through local space-time at approximately the speed of light, she explained to the assembled team. "If our calculations are correct, we'll create a zone of quantum chaos roughly 2 astronomical units in diameter." Dr. Sarah Kim, who had been working around the clock since arriving from Mars, looked up from her calculations. "And if we're wrong, then we'll have converted the entire inner solar system into a quantum soup that makes the space between Earth and Mars uninhabitable for the next 1,000 years." The silence that followed was broken by Marcus Chun, the graduate student whose insight had made the entire plan possible. "You know what? I've done worse things in video games." The tension in the room broke as exhausted scientists found themselves laughing at the absurdity of their situation. They were literally gambling with the future of human civilization based on theories that existed only on paper, and somehow a comparison to video games made it seem almost reasonable. "The beauty of this plan," Dr. Liu continued, "is that it doesn't require us to understand their technology. We just need to disrupt the local quantum environment enough to interfere with their targeting systems." The mechanism was elegantly simple. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt were specially modified nuclear warheads designed to detonate in precise sequence, creating overlapping quantum distortion fields. The aliens would find their advanced targeting systems increasingly unreliable the deeper they moved into the system. But the quantum chaos was only the first layer of humanity's defense. The real surprise was waiting in the asteroids themselves. Commander Sarachun had spent the last 72 hours turning the asteroid belt into the most dangerous neighborhood in the galaxy. Every rock larger than a school bus had been hollowed out, filled with nuclear warheads, and equipped with basic guidance systems. But the true genius of the plan wasn't the weapons themselves, it was how they were deployed. The key, she explained to her staff during their final briefing, is that they're not seeing weapons. They're seeing obstacles. Every asteroid, every piece of debris, every converted civilian ship, they all look like desperate attempts at area denial. The aliens will assume they just need to clear a path through the clutter. Chief Engineer Tanaka nodded grimly. And when they start clearing the clutter, they're going to discover that every piece of harmless debris is actually a guided nuclear warhead with instructions to ram the nearest alien ship. It was, by any measure, the most audacious military strategy ever conceived. Humanity was turning their entire solar system into a weapon, and they were going to fire it all at once. The first indication that something was wrong came when the inexorable Will's targeting systems began registering anomalous readings. Captain Zethkaler watched in growing confusion as his ship's sensors struggled to maintain target locks on the primitive human weapons platforms. Mixandra explained the sensor difficulties. Unknown interference pattern, Captain. Our targeting arrays are functioning normally, but the local space-time appears to be fluctuating in ways that make precise calculations difficult. Zethkaler had encountered sensor interference before, usually the result of solar flares or gravitational anomalies. But this felt different. The interference seemed to be concentrated around the human weapons platforms, as if the primitives had somehow learned to manipulate quantum mechanics. Impossible, he muttered. Their technology level precludes such capabilities. Shall I continue target elimination, Captain? Proceed, but maintain elevated alert status. Something is not right here. The first alien particle beam lanced out across space, targeting what appeared to be a converted human cargo vessel. The beam struck its target with perfect precision, and for a moment it seemed that standard pacification protocols were proceeding normally. Then, the cargo vessel exploded. Not the clean vaporization that alien weapons usually produced, but a massive nuclear detonation that lit up the darkness of space like a newborn star. The shockwave propagated outward at significant fractions of light speed, and the electromagnetic pulse temporarily blinded every sensor on the hegemony fleet. Report. Zethkaler barked as his bridge crew struggled to restore their systems. The human vessel was apparently carrying nuclear weapons, Captain. The detonation created significant electromagnetic interference throughout the area. Before Zethkaler could respond, alerts began cascading across his tactical display. Throughout the asteroid belt, what had appeared to be harmless debris was suddenly moving, accelerating toward his fleet with purpose and determination. Captain, we have multiple incoming projectiles, Mixandra reported, her voice carrying the first notes of concern. Estimated time to impact 47 minutes. Zethkaler studied the display, watching as thousands of red dots converged on his fleet's position. Each one represented what his sensors identified as a primitive nuclear weapon, but there were so many of them that his point defense systems would be overwhelmed within minutes. How many projectiles? Current count is approaching 12,000, Captain, and rising. For the first time in his military career, Captain Zethkaler felt something approaching panic. The humans had turned every piece of debris in their system into a guided missile, and they were launching all of them simultaneously. It was tactically insane. No military doctrine called for such wasteful use of resources. But as he watched the approaching swarm of nuclear weapons, Zethkaler realized that the humans weren't following any military doctrine he understood. They were improvising, using their entire solar system as a weapon in ways that no rational species would consider. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Implement maximum point defense protocols. The hegemony fleet began to move, their advanced engines allowing them to accelerate far faster than the primitive human missiles. But there were simply too many targets to avoid, and the quantum interference was making their targeting systems increasingly unreliable. The first collision occurred 18 minutes later, when a converted asteroid struck the destroyer Righteous Fury amidships. The nuclear explosion tore through alien armor that had been designed to withstand the weapons of advanced civilizations. Proof that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most effective. But the real shock came when the explosion triggered something impossible, a chain reaction that propagated through local spacetime itself. Captain, the detonation is creating quantum distortion fields that are interfering with our ship's phase systems, Mixandra reported, her voice tight with fear. If this continues, we may lose the ability to maintain hull integrity. Zethkaler stared at his tactical display in growing horror. The humans weren't just throwing nuclear weapons at his fleet. They were using those weapons to create zones of quantum chaos that made his advanced technology unreliable. Every detonation made it harder for his ships to function, while the primitive human weapons seemed completely unaffected by the interference. All ships, emergency withdrawal to safe distance. Transmit status report to Fleet Command immediately. As the battered Hegemony fleet retreated toward the outer edge of the solar system, they left behind 3 destroyed vessels and the wreckage of humanity's first defensive layer. But Captain Zethkaler knew that this was only the beginning. The humans had just demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't exist, and they had done it with technology that was centuries behind hegemony standards. Commander Sarah Chun watched the alien retreat from the bridge of the Defiance, her expression a mixture of satisfaction and grim determination. The first phase of Operation Prometheus had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. They had forced a technologically superior enemy to withdraw using nothing but nuclear weapons and creative application of physics. Damage report, she ordered. We've expended approximately 60% of our asteroid-based weapons platforms, reported her tactical officer. The enemy lost 3 ships confirmed, with possible damage to several others. Chen nodded. The plan had always called for massive expenditure of resources in the initial contact. The goal wasn't to win through attrition. It was to demonstrate that conquering humanity would be far more expensive than the aliens had anticipated. What's the status of the inter-system defenses? All platforms remain operational. Mars is ready to implement the atmospheric deception protocol, and Earth's orbital defenses are at maximum readiness. Chen looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, alien commanders were reporting to their superiors that humanity was far more dangerous than intelligence had suggested. The hegemony had expected to encounter a primitive species armed with simple nuclear weapons. Instead, they had found adversaries who could turn the fundamental forces of the universe into weapons. Open a channel to Earth Command, she ordered. Tell them that first blood goes to us. The aliens know we can hurt them now. The question is how badly they want to conquer us versus how much they're willing to lose in the process. In the command center of the Eternal Judgment, Fleet Commander Keltar studied the reports from Captain Zethkaler with the growing realization that his assumptions about humanity had been catastrophically wrong. The species he had dismissed as primitive had just inflicted casualties on a hegemony fleet using technology that should have been incapable of threatening his ships. Velthara analyzed the tactical reports. How are they creating quantum interference with nuclear weapons? His tactical officer's multiple limbs danced across her control surfaces as she processed the data from the engagement. The detonation patterns suggest a sophisticated understanding of quantum mechanics, Commander. They appear to be timing their explosions to create overlapping distortion fields that interfere with our phase technology. That level of theoretical understanding should be impossible for a pre-FTL species. Perhaps their technological development followed different paths than we assumed, Commander. The humans appear to have achieved significant advances in quantum physics despite their limited space travel capabilities. Keltar studied the holographic display showing the Sol system. The humans had just proven that they could inflict casualties on hegemony forces, which changed the entire strategic situation. What had begun as a routine pacification operation was rapidly becoming something far more complicated. Prepare the main fleet for deployment. And, Velthara, revise our threat assessment of humanity to Category 7. Category 7 was reserved for species that posed a legitimate threat to hegemony forces. In his 10,000 years of service, Keltar had never seen a pre-FTL species receive such a classification. Humanity had just announced to the galaxy that they were not going to surrender quietly. The hegemony had 2 choices: retreat and leave humanity alone, or commit the forces necessary to crush a species that had just proven they could turn physics itself into a weapon. As alerts echoed through the command center of the Eternal Judgment, Keltar made his decision. The hegemony had not maintained galactic dominance for 10 millennia by backing down from challenges, no matter how unexpected. The humans wanted a war. They were about to get one. The main hegemony fleet entered the Sol system like a dark tide of destruction. 150 vessels, ranging from sleek destroyers to massive dreadnoughts capable of cracking planets, advanced in perfect formation toward the small blue world that had dared to resist galactic authority. Fleet Commander Keltar stood in the command center of the Eternal Judgment, studying tactical displays that showed a level of preparation that defied all logic. The humans had not only refused to surrender after their outer defenses had been breached, they had somehow multiplied their defensive capabilities. Velthara explained these readings. His tactical officers' forearms moved in complex patterns as she processed data streams that painted an increasingly disturbing picture of human capabilities. Commander, the species appears to have evolved their defensive strategies since our initial engagement. Sensors indicate approximately 50,000 potential weapons platforms throughout the inner system. 50,000? Keltar's crest flared in disbelief. That's more than their entire pre-contact industrial capacity could have produced. Our analysis suggests they have converted virtually every artificial object in their system into weapons platforms, Commander. Orbital stations, manufacturing facilities, even civilian habitats appear to have been modified for military purposes. Keltar studied the holographic display, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. The asteroid belt, previously cleared of its converted weapons, now showed signs of new activity. The planet they called Mars was shrouded in atmospheric disturbances that suggested massive industrial activity. And Earth itself was surrounded by a network of orbital platforms that pulsed with energy signatures his sensors couldn't identify. What is their estimated technological capability now? Unknown, Commander. The quantum interference patterns from their weapons suggest a level of theoretical understanding that approaches our own. Additionally, they appear to have developed some form of adaptive manufacturing capability. The implications were staggering. In the weeks since first contact, humanity had somehow achieved technological advances that should have taken centuries. Either they had been hiding their true capabilities, or they possessed some form of accelerated learning that the hegemony had never encountered. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from a human homeworld, reported his communications officer. The main viewer activated, showing the same human female who had first responded to their ultimatum. But Commander Sarah Chun looked different now. Leaner, harder, with the focused intensity of someone who had spent weeks preparing for war. Fleet Commander Keltar, this is Commander Chun of the Earth Defense Force. You have 30 minutes to withdraw your fleet from our system before we implement final defensive protocols. Keltar's mandibles clicked in amusement. Even faced with overwhelming force, the humans maintained their defiant attitude. Commander Chun, you face the greatest military force in galactic history. Your defensive efforts, while more sophisticated than anticipated, cannot prevent the inevitable outcome. Chen's expression didn't change. You're right about one thing. This is going to be inevitable, but you might want to reconsider which outcome we're talking about. The transmission ended, leaving Keltar with an uncomfortable feeling that he was missing something crucial. In his experience, species facing extinction typically showed signs of fear or desperation. The humans showed neither. If anything, they seemed almost eager for the confrontation to begin. All ships advanced to engagement range. Implement Protocol 17. Systematic elimination of all military targets. What Fleet Commander Keltar didn't know was that humanity had spent the weeks since first contact transforming their species in ways that went far beyond simple weapons development. Dr. Rebecca Liu stood in what had once been the primary conference room of the United Earth Council, now converted into the nerve center for the most ambitious project in human history. Around her, holographic displays showed the real-time status of every human being in the solar system, connected through quantum communication networks that had been theoretical concepts just months ago. Status report on Project Titan, she requested. Dr. Sarah Kim, now serving as the coordinator for the Mars integration nodes, gestured to a display showing the red planet. Mars is fully operational. All 17 million inhabitants are connected to the network. Atmospheric processors are standing by for final implementation. Marcus Chun, who had somehow become one of humanity's leading experts on applied quantum mechanics, looked up from his calculations. The asteroid belt mining collectives are online. Every human in the belt is linked to the manufacturing network. We're currently producing approximately 10,000 weapons platforms per hour. Dr. Liu nodded, studying the quantum field equations that defined what they had accomplished. Project Titan was humanity's real answer to the hegemony threat. Not just better weapons, but a fundamental transformation of their entire species into something the galaxy had never seen before. Final implementation in T-minus 15 minutes, she announced. Once we activate the full network, there's no going back. We'll either save our species or destroy ourselves in the attempt. The plan was audacious beyond anything previously conceived. Using quantum entanglement principles they barely understood, humanity had linked every human consciousness in the solar system into a collective intelligence network. Not a hive mind. Individual personalities remained intact, but a shared processing capability that allowed their entire species to function as a single, massively distributed intelligence. The manufacturing implications alone were staggering. Every human brain connected to the network could contribute processing power to industrial design and production. Problems that would have taken months to solve could be addressed in minutes. Weapons systems could be designed, tested, and manufactured faster than any enemy could adapt to them. But the real power of Project Titan went beyond simple technological acceleration. Humanity was about to become something unprecedented in galactic history, a species where every individual could access the collective knowledge, creativity, and determination of their entire civilization. Commander Sarah Chun felt the first stirrings of connection as the Titan network came online. Suddenly, she could sense the thoughts and emotions of 12 billion human beings, not as an overwhelming flood, but as a vast reservoir of strength and knowledge that she could draw upon as needed. The sensation was indescribable. She remained herself, Sarah Chun, military commander, daughter of immigrants who had fled Earth's environmental catastrophes. But now she also had access to the memories and expertise of everyone from Dr. Liu's quantum equations to the tactical instincts of every military officer in human space. And she could feel them all looking back at her, 12 billion humans who had chosen her as their primary tactical coordinator, lending her their strength for the battle ahead. All stations, this is Chun, she broadcast, knowing that her words were being heard not just by her crew, but by every human in the solar system. Project Titan is now fully operational. Let's show these aliens what our species can do when we work together. The hegemony fleet was still 3 hours away from Earth when the true scope of humanity's transformation became apparent. Captain Zeth Kaler, commanding the advanced elements in his newly repaired ship, watched in growing alarm as his sensors detected massive energy signatures throughout the human system. What had been primitive manufacturing facilities 12 hours ago were now producing weapons at a rate that defied all logic. Mixandra confirmed these readings. Readings confirmed, Captain, the humans appear to have increased their manufacturing capacity by approximately 3,000% since our last engagement. That's impossible. Industrial expansion requires time, resources, infrastructure. Captain, incoming projectiles, Mixandra interrupted. Multiple launch points throughout the system. Estimated count, over 1 million individual warheads. Zeth Kaler stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 1 million nuclear warheads, all launched simultaneously from manufacturing facilities that hadn't existed hours ago. The humans weren't just improvising anymore. They were demonstrating production capabilities that rivaled the hegemony's most advanced worlds. All ships, maximum defensive posture. Contact fleet command immediately. We need reinforcements. But even as he gave the orders, Zeth Kaler realized that reinforcements might not be enough. The humans had somehow achieved a level of industrial coordination that should have been impossible for a pre-FDL species. They were fighting not just as individual ships or even fleets, but as an entire civilization focused on a single goal. The first wave of human weapons reached the hegemony fleet 18 minutes later, and The engagement that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for millennia to come. Unlike their previous attacks, the human weapons showed signs of real-time tactical adaptation. Warheads that encountered point defense systems immediately transmitted their experiences to other weapons in the swarm, allowing subsequent projectiles to adjust their approach vectors to avoid countermeasures. Even more disturbing, the humans appeared to be learning from hegemony defensive techniques in real time. Each engagement became progressively more difficult as human weapons adapted to alien countermeasures faster than those countermeasures could be updated. Captain, the enemy weapons are displaying coordinated intelligence. Mixandra reported as another spread of nuclear warheads penetrated their defensive screens. They're learning from each other and adjusting tactics accordingly. Zefkaler watched in fascination and horror as the tactical display showed human weapons actually communicating with each other, sharing targeting data, and coordinating their attacks in ways that suggested a level of artificial intelligence that the hegemony had never encountered. It's not artificial intelligence, he realized suddenly. It's collective intelligence. The humans have linked their entire species into a single tactical network. The implications were terrifying. The hegemony was fighting not just against human ships or even human fleets, but against the entire human species functioning as a unified organism. Every engagement provided learning data for the entire civilization. Every tactical innovation was instantly shared across their entire military force. As the battle raged through the asteroid belt, Captain Zefkaler began to understand why the humans had seemed so confident. They weren't just defending their system. They were evolving their entire species in real time, becoming something that the galaxy had never seen before. Fleet Commander Keltar received the combat reports with a growing sense that the fundamental assumptions underlying hegemony strategy were about to be challenged in ways no one had anticipated. Velthara, analysis of enemy capabilities. The humans have achieved species-wide tactical coordination, Commander. They appear to be functioning as a collective intelligence while maintaining individual consciousness nodes. Our engagement protocols assume facing conventional civilizations with hierarchical command structures. The humans operate as something unprecedented. Keltar studied the data streams showing the ongoing battle. His forces were inflicting casualties, but the humans were adapting to every tactic faster than new tactics could be developed. Worse, they seemed to be treating the entire engagement as a learning experience, gathering data that would make future encounters even more difficult. What is our current casualty rate? 7 ships lost, 18 showing significant damage. At current attrition rates, we will lose fleet effectiveness within 6 hours. For the first time in his military career, Fleet Commander Keltar faced the possibility that the hegemony might actually lose an engagement. Not through superior enemy technology or numbers, but because they were fighting an enemy that could evolve faster than they could adapt. Signal the main battle fleet, he ordered. Full engagement protocols. If the humans want to test the limits of collective intelligence, we'll give them a lesson in overwhelming force. But, as he gave the order, Keltar couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a terrible mistake. The humans had already proven they could turn physics itself into a weapon and coordinate their entire species as a single tactical entity. What other surprises might they have in store? Commander Sarah Chun felt the collective weight of human determination flowing through the Titan network as the main hegemony fleet began its final approach toward Earth. 12 billion minds working in harmony, sharing knowledge and strength across the vast distances of space. Through the network, she could sense the fear and excitement of colonists on Mars, the grim determination of asteroid miners turned warriors, and the brilliant innovations of scientists who were rewriting the laws of war in real time. All human forces, this is Chun. She broadcast through the quantum network. The enemy is committing their main fleet. Time to show them what our species becomes when we refuse to surrender. Across the solar system, 12 billion humans prepared to make their final stand. They had transformed themselves into something unprecedented in galactic history. A collective intelligence that retained the creativity and determination of individual consciousness while sharing the knowledge and strength of an entire species. The hegemony was about to learn that some opponents became more dangerous the harder you fought them. Humanity was evolving in real time, and They were about to unleash the full potential of a species that had never learned how to give up. The final battle for Earth's survival was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The final battle for humanity's survival began with the kind of violence that reshapes star systems and echoes through history for millennia. 150 hegemony vessels, representing the accumulated military might of 10,000 years of galactic conquest, faced off against a species that had fundamentally transformed itself in the space of weeks. Fleet Commander Keltar watched from the bridge of the Eternal Judgment as his forces engaged the human defensive networks. What he saw defied everything he thought he knew about warfare, physics, and the nature of civilization itself. Velthara, status report. His tactical officer's forearms moved in patterns of increasing desperation as she tried to process data that challenged the fundamental assumptions of military science. Commander, the humans are adapting faster than our tactical systems can compensate. Every weapons platform we destroy provides learning data for the remaining forces. On the holographic display, the battle unfolded in ways that no military academy had ever theorized. Human weapons platforms died by the thousands under hegemony particle beams, but each destruction contributed to a growing tactical database that made subsequent platforms increasingly difficult to target. More disturbing still, the humans were manufacturing new weapons in real time. Asteroid mining facilities that had been converted to weapons production were literally creating new missile platforms while the battle raged, incorporating lessons learned from earlier casualties into each new design. How are they maintaining this level of coordination? Keltar demanded. Unknown, Commander. Our intelligence suggested they lacked faster-than-light communication, but they're demonstrating response times that suggest instantaneous information sharing across their entire system. What Fleet Commander Keltar couldn't understand was that humanity had achieved something the hegemony had never imagined possible. A collective intelligence that operated through quantum entanglement rather than conventional communication networks. Every human consciousness in the solar system was linked through quantum fields that allowed information to propagate faster than light itself. Dr. Rebecca Liu, functioning as one of the primary tactical coordinators for the collective human intelligence, processed battle data at rates that would have been impossible for any individual consciousness. Through the Titan network, she could simultaneously monitor 1 million different engagements while coordinating manufacturing efforts across dozens of worlds and installations. Status on the Mars Atmospheric Deception Protocol, she requested through the quantum link. Dr. Sarah Kim's response came instantly, carrying not just words but the complete tactical assessment of Mars's defensive preparations. Standing by for implementation. The hegemony fleet is maintaining course toward Earth, ignoring Mars as a secondary target. Perfect. Marcus, status on the solar collection arrays. Marcus Chen's consciousness touched hers through the network, sharing calculations that would have taken hours to communicate through conventional means. The arrays are charging at optimal efficiency. We'll have full power for the solar lance in approximately 47 minutes. Lou felt a moment of satisfaction flow through the network. The solar lance was humanity's most ambitious weapon, a system that could focus the entire energy output of the sun into a coherent beam capable of destroying anything in the solar system. It required perfect coordination between millions of orbital platforms and the kind of computational power that was only possible through collective intelligence. But the real surprise was yet to come. Captain Zethkaler commanded the inexorable will at the forefront of the hegemony advance, his ship cutting through waves of human weapons like a blade through water. His vessel's armor had been scarred by dozens of nuclear impacts, but hegemony defensive systems were holding against the primitive human weapons. Mixandra, estimated time to reach the primary planet? 32 minutes at current velocity, Captain. Zethkaler studied the tactical display, noting the decreasing density of human weapons platforms as his fleet advanced toward Earth. The humans had put up a fierce resistance, but they were running out of assets to throw at the hegemony force. Captain, we're receiving transmission from the human homeworld, his communications officer reported. The main viewer activated, showing Commander Sarah Chen one final time. But something had changed in her appearance. She seemed somehow larger than life, as if she were not just speaking for herself, but for an entire species. Captain Zeth Kaler, you have fought bravely, and you have inflicted significant casualties on our forces. But you have made one critical error in your calculations. Zeth Kaler's crest flared in irritation. And what error is that, human? Chun smiled, and in that expression was something that made the alien captain's blood run cold. You assumed that our weapons were designed to stop you. The transmission ended, and for a moment the bridge of the inexorable will was silent except for the hum of alien technology. Then, Mick Sandra's voice cut through the silence with a tone that Zeth Kaler had never heard from his unflappable tactical officer. Pure terror. Captain, massive energy surge detected from the primary star. Something is focusing the solar output into a coherent beam. Zeth Kaler spun toward the display, watching in horror as humanity's true purpose became clear. They hadn't been trying to stop the hegemony fleet at all. They had been herding it into position, using their defensive weapons to guide the alien ships exactly where they wanted them. Every engagement, every sacrifice, every desperate defense had been part of an elaborate plan to position the hegemony fleet in the path of a weapon that used their own star as ammunition. Emergency maneuvers, all ships. Keltar's voice crackled over the fleet communication channels. The humans have weaponized their star, but it was already too late. The solar lance fired with the concentrated power of a stellar core, a beam of pure energy that carved through the hegemony fleet like a sword through paper. Ships that had survived the destruction of dozens of worlds simply ceased to exist as trillions of tons of stellar energy struck them with pinpoint accuracy. In the space of seconds, 150 of the finest vessels in the galaxy were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Fleet Commander Keltar survived only because the Eternal Judgment was positioned at the rear of the formation, outside the primary beam path. He watched in stunned silence as his entire fleet, ships that had never known defeat, crews that had conquered worlds, was annihilated by a species that had achieved spaceflight less than a century ago. Velthara, Casualty Report. His tactical officer's voice was barely a whisper. Total fleet loss, Commander. All vessels in the primary engagement zone have been destroyed. Keltar stared at the tactical display, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. The humans had just eliminated the largest military force the hegemony had assembled in over 1,000 years, using their own star as a weapon. It was a feat that should have been impossible for any species, let alone one that had been classified as pre-technological just months ago. Commander, we're receiving another transmission from the human homeworld. Commander Sarah Chun appeared on the main viewer again, but now Keltar could see what had been hidden before. She wasn't speaking as an individual. Somehow, she was serving as the voice of an entire species operating as a single organism. Fleet Commander Keltar, you have witnessed what humanity becomes when faced with extinction. Your civilization has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years through superior technology and military force. We have just demonstrated that evolution can occur faster than technological development. Keltar found his voice. What do you want? Peace, Chun replied simply. Withdraw your forces from our system, and we will consider this matter settled. Continue to threaten us, and we will demonstrate that our solar lance was merely the beginning of what we can accomplish. Through the quantum network, Chun could feel the collective will of humanity focused through her words. 12 billion minds that had learned to work together, sharing knowledge and creativity in ways that multiplied their capabilities beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. You see, Commander, your species makes the mistake of viewing intelligence as an individual trait. But consciousness can be collective while remaining creative. We have become something unprecedented, a species that retains the innovation of individual minds while possessing the coordination of a single organism. Keltar studied the display showing his devastated fleet, then looked at the tactical readings from the human system. Even after the massive expenditure of energy required for the solar lance, the humans were showing signs of continued manufacturing activity. They were already rebuilding their defenses and, more ominously, appear to be constructing new types of weapons platforms. What assurance do we have that you will not use these capabilities offensively? Chen's expression softened slightly, and for a moment Keltar could see the individual human beneath the collective intelligence. Because, Commander, we never wanted to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone to explore the universe in our own way. Your hegemony forced us to evolve beyond our original nature. Now we're offering you the chance to evolve beyond yours. The implications were staggering. The humans weren't just proposing a ceasefire. They were suggesting a fundamental transformation in how galactic civilization operated. A shift from dominance through force to coexistence through mutual respect. The Hegemony Council will never accept such terms, Keltar replied. Then, the Hegemony Council will face the same choice you're facing now, Chen said quietly. Adapt or be replaced by something that can. The transmission ended, leaving Keltar alone with the wreckage of everything he had believed about power, technology, and the nature of civilization itself. Dr. Rebecca Liu disconnected from the primary tactical network and allowed herself to experience individual consciousness again after hours of collective thought. Around her, the other coordinators of Project Titan were similarly returning to their individual selves, though the quantum connections remained active at a background level. Status report on system-wide casualties, she requested. Marcus Chun, looking exhausted but triumphant, pulled up the relevant data. We lost approximately 40% of our weapons platforms and roughly 15% of our manufacturing capability. Casualty count among human personnel is remarkably low. The collective intelligence protocols allowed us to evacuate threatened areas with unprecedented efficiency. Dr. Sarah Kim nodded from her position at the Mars Coordination Station. The atmospheric deception protocols worked perfectly. The Hegemony fleet ignored Mars completely, allowing us to maintain full manufacturing capability on our primary industrial world. Liu studied the tactical displays showing the aftermath of humanity's first interstellar war. They had not just survived, they had fundamentally transformed themselves in the process. The Titan network had proven that collective intelligence was not only possible, but could coexist with individual creativity and consciousness. What's our status regarding continued hegemony threats? Unknown, Marcus admitted, but we've demonstrated capabilities that should make them reconsider any future aggressive actions. The Solar Lance alone represents a level of engineering coordination that most civilizations couldn't achieve. Liu nodded, then activated the quantum network to address the entire human species simultaneously. Through the connection, she could feel the presence of 12 billion minds, exhausted, traumatized by the violence they had witnessed, but united in a way that had never before existed in galactic history. Citizens of humanity, she broadcast through the network, we have achieved something unprecedented. We have not only survived first contact with a hostile alien civilization, but we have evolved in the process. We are no longer the same species that first detected alien signals weeks ago. The response came not in words, but in emotions, relief, pride, determination, and something else that Liu recognized as a fundamental shift in how humanity viewed its place in the universe. They were no longer alone, no longer isolated, and no longer defenseless. The galaxy has seen what we become when threatened with extinction. Now we must decide what we become in peace. 3 months after the Battle of Seoul, as historians would later call it, the first hegemony diplomatic vessel entered human space under a flag of truce. The delegation was led not by Fleet Commander Keltar, who had requested reassignment to the outer territories, but by Counselor Mixtara, one of the oldest and most respected members of the Hegemony ruling council. Commander Sarah Chun met the alien diplomat aboard a specially constructed station in the outer asteroid belt, far enough from Earth to ensure that any treachery would not threaten the human homeworld. Counselor Mixtara, welcome to human space, Chun said as the tall, multi-limbed alien entered the conference chamber. Commander Chun, or should I say, Speaker for Humanity? Mixtara's translator rendered her words with perfect clarity, though Chun could detect undertones that suggested profound uncertainty. I speak for humanity, but I am not their ruler, Chun replied. We have evolved beyond the need for traditional hierarchical government. Each human retains their individual consciousness while participating in collective decision-making as needed. Mixtara settled into a chair designed to accommodate her alien physiology, her 4 eyes studying Chun with intense curiosity. The implications of your evolution, have caused significant upheaval within the Hegemony Council. Some members are calling for total war to eliminate what they see as an existential threat to galactic order. And others believe that humanity may represent the next stage in galactic evolution. Your demonstration of collective intelligence while maintaining individual creativity suggests possibilities that we had never considered. Chun felt the background presence of the quantum network, 12 billion humans monitoring this conversation and ready to provide input if needed. But for now, they were content to let her speak for them. What does the hegemony propose? Mixtera activated a holographic display showing the galactic arm containing human space. Autonomy for your species within a clearly defined sphere of influence. No hegemony vessels will enter human space without permission, and no human vessels will be permitted beyond these boundaries without prior authorization. Chun studied the proposed boundaries, simultaneously accessing the collective human intelligence to evaluate the offer from multiple perspectives. The response came within seconds, not as orders from a government, but as the unified will of an entire species. The hegemony's offer is acceptable as a starting point, but we propose modifications. What modifications? First, any species that wishes to study our collective intelligence protocols will be permitted to do so, with the understanding that the knowledge may fundamentally alter their civilization. Second, we reserve the right to offer our evolution assistance to any species that requests it. Third, the boundaries you've proposed will be considered temporary pending further developments in galactic civilization. Mixtera's crest flared in what Chun had learned to recognize as surprise. You're proposing to share the technology that made you so dangerous? We're proposing to share the evolution that made us so capable, Chun corrected. Violence was never our goal, Counselor. We simply wanted to survive. Now, we want to help others achieve what we've achieved. The ability to function as both individuals and as collective intelligences when circumstances require it. The alien diplomat was silent for several minutes, processing implications that went far beyond simple territorial agreements. The humans weren't just proposing peace. They were offering to fundamentally transform galactic civilization itself. Such changes would be unprecedented. Chun smiled, and in that expression was the accumulated wisdom of a species that had learned to work together without losing their individuality. Counselor, the galaxy is about to discover that unprecedented can be a very good thing. As the negotiations continued, observers throughout human space could feel a shift in the quantum network. Not fear or uncertainty, but anticipation. Humanity had proven they could defend themselves against any threat the galaxy could offer. Now, they were preparing to offer the galaxy something far more valuable than military protection. They were offering evolution itself. The hegemony had come to Sol, expecting to encounter another primitive species to be absorbed into their galactic empire. Instead, they had found the future, a glimpse of what civilization could become when individual creativity merged with collective intelligence. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, thought Commander Sarah Chun as she felt the hopes and dreams of 12 billion humans flowing through the quantum network, that was exactly what the universe needed. Humanity had survived first contact. Now they were going to change what it meant to be alive among the stars. The age of isolation was over. The age of collective evolution had begun.